The movie kicks off with a journalist named Mel Ferd investigating a company called BTH, short for Body Talk Health Style, which has been accused of selling harmful products to consumers. J.J. Doherty, a corporate whistleblower, secretly meets Mel Ferd and hands him evidence against BTH. Mel Ferd inserts the drive into his laptop and discovers the horrifying truth about the company. Meanwhile, a gang of goons sent by BTH sneaks into Mel Ferd's house. The group, known as Killer Nuts, is extremely dangerous. Panicked, Mel Ferd gives the evidence file back to JJ and tells her to escape with it while he distracts the gang. One of the gang members shoots Mel Ferd, causing him to collapse to the floor. However, he gets back on his feet, claiming they cannot hurt him. Moments later, another crazed goon attacks him with a harpoon, sending him crashing out of the building. Terrified, JJ runs away with the evidence. Through a series of illustrations, it is revealed that BTH has been dumping poisonous sludge into the town's water supply, causing people and animals to suffer from fatal diseases. Despite the accusations, the company has always denied any wrongdoing. The story then introduces Winston Goose, a janitor working at BTH. Through a voiceover, Winston explains that he lost Sally a year ago, leaving behind her son Wade. Although Winston never got the chance to marry Sally, he still loved her deeply and now looks after Wade as if he were his own son. Before heading to work, Winston prepares breakfast for Wade. However, Wade has never truly accepted Winston as his father, though Winston never lets it bother him. After breakfast, the two step outside and witness a man from BTH threatening Daisy, demanding that she hand over her house or he will hurt her cat. The man gives her 12 hours to sign the papers. Winston, too afraid to interfere, simply watches the situation unfold. Before leaving, the man throws Daisy's cat aside and drives away. Winston quickly picks up the frightened cat and returns it to Daisy. Wade becomes upset with Winston for not standing up to the man and helping Daisy. Instead, he believes Winston acted like a coward. Angry and disappointed, Wade boards his school bus and leaves. Later, Winston arrives at BTH and carries out his usual duties, including cleaning the company vault. Sometime afterward, he receives a phone call from the hospital, where a nurse informs him that his test results are ready and asks him to come in immediately. Winston soon visits Dr. Walla, who delivers devastating news. Winston is suffering from a terminal brain disease, and at best has only 1 year left to live. However, Dr. Walla explains that there is an experimental drug treatment available, but it is incredibly expensive and far beyond Winston's financial reach. His insurance will probably cover it, giving Peter Dinklage a new ray of hope. Robert Garbinger, the owner of BTH, eagerly waits for the arrival of his brother Fritz Garbinger. Sometime later, Fritz finally shows up, only to be furiously scolded by Robert for failing to kill JJ, who still possesses the evidence capable of exposing their company. Enraged, Fritz returns to the Killer Nuts and orders them to capture JJ as soon as possible. The very next day, the Killer Nuts arrive at JJ's house, but they fail to find her anywhere inside. Frustrated and disappointed, they leave empty-handed. Just as they depart, JJ rushes back into her house, grabs her belongings, and quickly escapes. Meanwhile, at New Chemistry High School, a dance competition is taking place. Most of the students impress the judges with their performances, except for Wade, who completely loses confidence on stage and storms off in humiliation. Soon after, videos of his embarrassing performance spread across social media, where he is mercilessly trolled online. Winston searches the internet for a health insurance plan and discovers that Robert Garbinger is about to receive the highest civilian honor at Mammon Hall. Meanwhile, Wade returns home devastated by his failed performance. Winston tries his best to comfort him, but Wade refuses to respond. Determined to seek help for his illness, Winston heads to the extravagant award banquet where Robert is about to be honored. During the event, Robert meets with a local mobster who has long kept influence over him because of the help he once provided in building BTH into a successful company. The mobster warns Robert that people are no longer buying their products. Not long afterward, Robert is presented with the prestigious civilian award. While Robert celebrates with his friends and business associates, Winston interrupts him and explains that he has loyally worked for BTH for the past 13 years and is now suffering from a terminal brain disease. Desperate, Winston begs Robert to speak to his staff and help him obtain medical insurance. However, the corrupt Robert dismisses the matter and hands Winston over to his girlfriend, Kissy. She escorts Winston down to the basement and silently throws him out of the building. While leaving, Winston overhears Robert joking that he plans to fire Winston, rehire him, and then fire him again for amusement. Meanwhile, JJ secretly sneaks into the BTH compound to collect a sample that could expose the company's crimes. Fritz detects her presence and immediately sends the Killer Nuts after her. At the same time, an enraged Winston slips into the company vault and opens a canister filled with poisonous sludge. He dips his mop into the liquid, only to be stunned when the mop suddenly begins emitting an eerie green glow. JJ successfully collects her sample. Winston forces a security guard to fill his bag with cash, terrifying him with the strangely glowing mop. Before long, the Killer Nuts arrive at the compound and begin searching the area. While trying to escape, Winston and JJ accidentally collide with each other, causing JJ's sample to spill onto Winston's bag full of cash. The chemical reaction immediately ignites the bag, burning all the money and destroying Winston's hopes in an instant. The Killer Nuts spotted them. In the chaos, JJ accidentally grabs Winston's ID card and flees in panic. She manages to climb over the barricade and escape safely, but Winston's short height prevents him from getting over it. As a result, the Killer Nuts captured him. Without hesitation, one of the crazed gang members shoots Winston in the head, killing him instantly. Shortly afterward, Fritz arrives and furiously scolds the gang for murdering the wrong person. Their mission had been to kill JJ, not Winston, who already worked for BTH. Fritz orders them to clean up the mess and continue hunting JJ. A man wearing a rooster mask disposes of Winston's body by dumping it into the radioactive sludge. However, the moment Winston's body comes into contact with the toxic waste, he undergoes a horrifying mutation and transformation, turning into a monstrous creature completely beyond recognition. Hiding from the public, Winston eventually makes his way back home and attempts to enter through the back window. Unfortunately, Wade sees the terrifying figure and, frightened out of his mind, throws a box at him. The impact causes Winston to fall onto a parked car below. The car belongs to the same man who had been trying to seize Daisy's house. Furious over the damage, the man immediately pulls out a gun and shoots Winston without hesitation. To his utter shock, however, Winston remains completely unharmed. The new Winston walks up to the man and tears his arm apart as if he were nothing. He catches the attention of the passers-by, who begin recording videos of him while calling him a fiend. Winston is soon chased by an angry mob. With no other option left, he escapes into the woods to save his life. In a state of panic, he eventually passes out. The scene then cuts to the spooky woods, where Winston regains consciousness the next morning and finds himself in the junkyard of a man who calls himself a doctor. The man, Guthrie Stockens, tells Winston that he found him unconscious in the woods and asks about his condition. Winston replies that he is dying because he suffers from a terminal brain disease. Guthrie becomes oddly enthusiastic and says that everyone is dying from something, so Winston is not special in that regard. Winston explains that he has a son who thinks he is a monster. Guthrie responds by saying that he is not a monster but a man with a good heart. In the middle of their conversation, Winston notices his mop glowing intensely. Guthrie explains that he found it washed up in a strange lagoon. He hands it back to Winston, saying it truly belongs to him. Winston takes the mop and rushes off to meet his son, Wade. News of the green-skinned freak spreads through town like wildfire, and the public is urged to inform the police if they encounter him anywhere. Wade watches the news and immediately dials 911 to report him. Meanwhile, a group of armed political extremists, calling themselves the Nasty Lads, take several people hostage inside Miss Meat's restaurant. Winston happens to arrive there, covering himself with a sheet. The leader of the group fires shots into the air to intimidate the police, forcing them to comply with his demands. A female hostage splashes water onto the leader's face, causing him to lose control. Just as he is about to blow her brains out, Winston storms in with his mop. With a single strike, he kills the leader. He then takes down every member of the Nasty Lads, freeing all the hostages. The police safely rescue the civilians, while Winston walks out of the diner. The officers are prepared to kill him, but a paramedic informs them that Winston is actually the hero who saved everyone. News reporters quickly surround him for interviews. At the same time, Wade watches the broadcast on TV and immediately recognizes Winston as his stepfather. Meanwhile, Bud, the son of mob boss Thad Barkabas, also identifies Winston on television and tells his father that Winston was the man who attacked him that night. Thad immediately orders his goons to track Winston down and kill him as quickly as possible. Robert Garbinger discovers that the green-skinned monster is actually Winston, the janitor they fired from the company a few days earlier, after noticing a company badge still attached to Winston's shoulder. Robert blames Fritz for the entire situation because his men dumped Winston into the contaminated sludge, which transformed him into a monster. Robert's lab assistant pieces together that the toxic waste from their company triggered a powerful mutation within Winston's body, resulting in muscle accretion, hypercellular augmentation, and other extreme physical changes that turned him into a mighty creature. Robert asks the scientist whether the mutation can be recreated. The scientist replies that they need Winston himself. Robert then begins planning how to bring Winston back to the lab. Fritz suggests abducting Winston's only son instead. Using Winston's ID card, JJ tracks down his home and meets Wade, explaining that she wants to expose the BTH company. She reveals that her mother died after consuming products manufactured by the BTH factory. Wade accuses her of dragging Winston into this mess, but JJ explains that Winston was already there stealing money from BTH's vault. Suddenly, they sense someone outside the door. The killer nuts break into the apartment and begin searching for Wade, only to discover that he escaped with JJ. Before leaving, the clown shoots a tracking transmitter into Wade's foot. While escaping, Wade and JJ run into Winston. Wade asks him what happened to him. Winston finally reveals that he is suffering from a severe illness, which drove him to steal money from BTH after the company denied him medical insurance. At that moment, the goons sent by Thad arrive and open fire on Winston, forcing JJ and Wade to flee in terror. Despite being badly wounded, Winston gets back up and kills one of the attackers before running away. While escaping, JJ and Wade hear a persistent beeping sound and discover the tracking device embedded in Wade's foot. Before JJ can remove it, she is shot dead by the killer nuts. Gravely injured, Winston searches desperately for a hiding place. He hides beneath a pile of trash and drags one of Thad's goons inside with him. One by one, he brutally kills every thug with ease. Afterward, Winston checks on JJ, only to find her barely alive. He takes her to Guthrie, who declares her dead. With no other way to discover Wade's location, Winston drills into his own body, releasing some of the strange sludge inside him. He injects it into JJ's body, reviving her. Meanwhile, the killer nuts abducts Wade, taking him to Robert Garbinger's mansion. Fritz calms Wade down, explaining that they are only using him as bait to lure Winston. For the first time, Wade calls Winston his father and says that his dad loves him more than anything in the world. He asks Fritz how he would feel if someone tried to take him away from his family, leaving Fritz emotionally shaken. Meanwhile, Thad Barkabus is furious with Robert Garbinger because Winston has slaughtered all of his men. Fritz arrives with Wade, and Robert's mercenaries lock the boy inside a cabin outside the mansion. Elsewhere, JJ thanks Winston for saving her life and reveals that Robert kidnapped Wade to draw Winston in. She also explains that BTH murdered her mentor, Mel Ferd, an honest reporter investigating the company. The killer nuts hold a public concert as a distraction, but Winston suddenly arrives wielding his glowing mop. He exposes the group to the crowd, revealing that they work for BTH and have been murdering innocent people. The clown-faced member fires at Winston, but Winston crushes his skull in an instant. Another member wearing a rooster mask tries to flee, only to be attacked by JJ. When Winston removes the mask, he is shocked to discover a terrified baby underneath. Choosing mercy, he spares the child and heads to Robert's mansion with JJ to rescue Wade. When they arrive, they find Wade trapped inside a cabin. Suddenly, poisonous gas pours from a nearby statue, knocking them unconscious. They awaken chained inside Robert Garbinger's mansion. Robert taunts Winston, asking how it feels to be a monster, before his scientists begin extracting Winston's blood for experiments. At the same time, the news reports expose BTH's organized crime connections, toxic dumping, and environmental abuses. Thad realizes Robert may betray him, and prepares to kill him. Desperate, Robert secretly drinks Winston's blood, transforming himself into a monstrous creature. He immediately slaughters Thad and his men in a brutal rampage. Kissy enters the room, sees Robert's monstrous form, and drinks the remaining blood herself, mutating into a fiend. She orders her mercenaries to kill everyone upstairs, including Wade. Fritz protests, insisting Wade is just a child, but Kissy ignores him and beats him savagely with an iron bar. Meanwhile, JJ wakes Winston and warns him that Wade is in danger. Enraged, Winston escapes by using his acidic urine to dissolve the collar binding him. He frees JJ, and together they flee the mansion. During the chaos, a guard's gunfire accidentally ignites an oxygen cylinder, causing the cabin to explode. Winston is devastated, believing Wade has died in the blast. Soon after, Robert appears in his demonic form, and a vicious battle erupts between the two monsters. Elsewhere, Kissy attacks JJ, but JJ knocks her down with a toilet seat. Just as Robert is about to kill Winston, JJ strikes him with the toilet seat, screaming that it is revenge for her mother. Winston seizes the opportunity and brutally pummels Robert, unleashing all his anger over being abandoned by BTH. Suddenly, Wade appears alive alongside Fritz. It is revealed that Fritz rescued him moments before the explosion. Wade calls Winston Dad again and begs him not to kill Robert, insisting that Winston is not a monster. Suddenly, Robert lunges at him one last time, but Winston impales him with the mop and traps him beneath a car hood, while JJ starts the engine, shredding Robert to pieces. After the fight, Winston approaches Wade and asks if he really called him Dad. Wade quietly says yes. At that moment, Kissy suddenly stabs Winston from behind with a metal rod and slits Fritz's throat. Before she can attack JJ, Winston rises once more and lunges at her. As the contaminated sludge catches fire from contact with the glowing mop, the scene cuts away. Later, Winston awakens in a hospital. News broadcasts reveal that federal investigators have uncovered BTH's massive conspiracy involving fraud, bribery, toxic dumping, and murder connected to city officials. However, both Robert Garbinger and the so-called Toxic Avenger remain officially missing. Agent Sarah tells Winston she spent years investigating BTH, but never had enough evidence to bring them down. When Winston asks if he will be arrested, Sarah admits that he also saved countless lives. Soon after, Dr. Walla reveals that Winston has miraculously recovered from his terminal brain disease and is no longer in danger. After leaving the hospital, Winston is welcomed by the townspeople as the Toxic Avenger who destroyed BTH. JJ bids him farewell from a distance and moves on with her life. Wade then emerges from the crowd and embraces Winston, finally accepting him as his father. In the closing moments, Guthrie cooks an omelet using eggs from a mutated hen deep in the woods. Wade performs on stage before a cheering crowd, with Winston proudly watching from the audience.